AFR Talk. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Video segments of today's program will be posted at afr.net and on the Focal Point Facebook page. You'll also find the best collection of Brian's resources on our Facebook page. If you're on Twitter, you can be among the first every morning to find out what the day's show will be about. Just follow Brian at Brian J. Fisher.
Hi, welcome back to this Thursday edition of Focal Point. AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Program Focal Point Network, AFR Talk. Got the Summer Snow movie coming out, premiering July 15 in selected theaters. Neat little family story about a young girl, the impact of her life. Worth watching. You can get more information about it at summersnowmovie.com. Summersnowmovie.com. The first production of our own American Family Studios. A story of 8-year-old Hallie Benson. Mother's died, she's left, and she becomes kind of the spiritual spark plug for her family. So it's a story about her generous spirit, her selfless love, and how it transforms the lives of people around her. Summersnowmovie.com if you want more information. One other piece of information, factoid on Hillary Clinton. She's not inevitable as everybody wants to think. Book sales down 43% in the second week. She's in 15th place on Amazon. She recently made an appearance on CNN with Christian Amanpour. Listen to this. This is according to the Washington Post. Eric Wimple on the Washington Post writing this about Queen Hillary. Everybody's saying there's going to be a coronation here. When CNN rolled out the red carpet for Hillary Clinton, they did more than just build a set and invite an audience to participate. According to the Washington Post, Eric Wimple, who attended the event, CNN warmed up the crowd for Hillary and even coached them on how to cheer and make noise to demonstrate enthusiasm for the former Secretary of State. What does that mean? They could detect that there was no enthusiasm in the room. And these people were picked from Washington, D.C., where 90% of the people are liberal. So these were locals. And if you can't get an enthusiastic Hillary Clinton audience in downtown Washington, D.C., how's she going to do in 2016? Now, here's that soundbite. Matt Lee, Associated Press. Look, Congress is renaming a street right in front of the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., in honor of a Nobel Prize winner, pro-democracy leader in China. Here's how their exchange went.
On China, you were asked yesterday about the move in Congress and also in D.C. City Council to change the name of, of the road. You've seen, not surprisingly, the Chinese are not very happy about this. Do you guys take a position on, kind of needling foreign governments with steps like this? Do you think that it's appropriate? Do you think that it's helpful to your broader foreign policy aims?
In terms of this pending legislation, at this point aren't going to have any comment on it, any position to share with you all. But if that changes, happy to let you know.
Can I ask why?
Doesn't she sound like a Valley girl?
And puts out statements.
And we routinely don't. In some cases we do, in some cases we don't.
Well, this was one that seems like it would have it has a direct foreign policy element to it. It's certainly intended to send a message. Do you think that renaming streets in this kind of way that are designed to be provocative in general is a good idea?
I don't think I have a general comment on this because you're trying to get me to weigh in on a specific issue, and we just aren't going to comment on this kind of pending legislation.
Okay, so that means that
doesn't mean we don't have a position, just means I don't have one to share.
So you do have a position.
I didn't say we did. I said doesn't mean we don't. Doesn't mean we do. I just don't have one to share.
But it's a secret. It's a secret position.
Sometimes we make our
transparent administration.
Sometimes we don't. Most of the time, actually, we don't comment publicly on our positions on pending legislation. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't.
Well, but this
we
is more
clearly
than just pending legislation.
No, it's not. It is. By definition, pending legislation.
This is
I think by definition that's accurate.
This is the renaming of a street.
Okay, I will take your suggestion
to provoke and annoy a foreign government.
I'm not going to have any comment on
and
it.
I'm just wanting to know if the State Department thinks that that's a good thing, a good way to practice foreign policy.
I'm not going to have any comment on this pending legislation.
I'm going to bring this up every day.
Fine.
Until you.
Happy for you to waste everyone's time in doing that when you know the answer.
No, it's not.
I'll let you know if the answer changes.
All right, so that's Valley girl Marie Harf Matt Lee, Associated Press, boring in, and I tell you, these reporters, these guys are liberals, Associated Press, Associated Propaganda, Administration Propaganda, if you want to rename them, AP. They're in the tank for leftist causes, and they are annoyed. They are frankly irritated at the kind of spokesman that President Obama is trotting out for the State Department. So, do you have a position on this issue, the renaming of the street? She says it doesn't mean we don't have a position. Wait. Let's see. It doesn't mean we don't have a position. It just means I don't have one to share. Oh, so you do have a position. I didn't say we did. I said it doesn't mean we don't. Doesn't mean we do. I just don't have one to share. And he says this is coming from the most transparent administration in history. One other quick soundbite before we go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Clip number 7. Remember, we talked earlier about what's going on in Iraq. This place is it's total chaos. Al-Qaeda's taken over that place. They now control the border between Iraq and Syria. They've got designs on Jordan, where they're going to launch attacks against the U.S. and against Israel from Jordan. They now apparently have designs against Lebanon. I mean, they're looking to turn that entire part of the world into an Islamic caliphate, including the land of Israel. Their plans are to take control of the land of Israel and turn it into an Islamic caliphate. And remember, Ralph Peters said, look, one of the reasons it's a mistake to send these 300 American soldiers over there is ISIS is going to make them high-priority targets, and if ISIS or Al-Qaeda gets hold of them, they're going to cut their heads off. This is how they recruit. They recruit people by cutting people's heads off and filming it and then posting the videos on the net. Come and join us. This is what we do to the infidels. And Peter's saying, look, Iraq's not going to protect these guys. They're not going to come to their defense if they come under attack. Now, this is a flashback. This is President Obama. And listen to President Obama's view of his triumph in Iraq.
We've ended the war in Iraq. I've kept the commitments that I've made. I told you we'd end the war in Iraq. We did.
Remind them that this is the president that ended the war in Iraq.
Hey! You know I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. I said I'd end the war in Iraq. I ended it.
He has taken good care of our men and women in uniform. He has ended the war in Iraq.
I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. I said I'd end the war in Iraq. I ended it.
We ended the war in Iraq.
That's why I ended the war in Iraq. So, 4 years ago, I told you we'd end the war in Iraq, and I did. Ago, I said I would end the war in Iraq, and I did. Indeed, everything that American troops have done in Iraq, all the fighting, and all the dying, the bleeding, and the building, and the training, and the partnering, all of it has led to this moment of success. But we're leaving behind a sovereign, stable, and self-reliant Iraq.
Do you hear the number of times he said, I ended the war in Iraq? I did it, as if he was the one driving the tanks. He was the one firing the weapons. He was the one doing the patrols. I ended the war in Iraq. Well, ask the people in Iraq how ended that war seems to be. Let's grab a couple of phone calls, 888-589-8840. Let's go to April in DeSoto County, Mississippi. April, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey there. I'd love to weigh in on this Senate race.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
I supported McDaniel, and I've been involved in the Republican Party for quite some time. Your question was, what should we do in November?
Yes.
Well, if the knife wound in my back heals, maybe I'll be able to make a better decision. But this is something I do know right now. I know that you can look at the counties that supported heavily McDaniel. Then you can start to see that we have local elected officials that supported Cochran. So my position is that if you're an elected official that supported Cochran, you're part of the problem. You are the establishment. You're the ones that helped him pull this off. So if you're a mayor in Hernando, Mississippi, and 70% of your city voted for McDaniel, but you voted for Cochran, I think you bear responsibility for it. So while I don't feel like a saboteur for the November election, what I can do is I can cast my vote for conservative Republicans locally because, as we know, all politics are local.
Now, let me ask you just one question. So it sounds to me like you are probably inclined to wind up voting for Senator Cochran in November because you don't want to give any more advantage to the Democrats. But all politics is local, so you're going to look for local conservatives that you can get behind because local politicians are as much a problem as people at the national level.
That's true, and not just local, but you have to look at our state elected officials, too. Think about all the many, many, many endorsements that Cochran got on the state level. So if at the state level, in our party leadership, if you're going to say that half of the electorate supported someone and then you help sabotage half of the electorate, even the state level, there's a price to be paid for that. And I think what you're going to see is in some of these other elections that are coming up, I think you're going to see the backlash show itself more greatly in those elections perhaps than you will in November, because even though the conservatives were shown no loyalty whatsoever by our own party, most of us are still pretty loyal to the Republican Party, even though it wasn't done for us.
Now, April, I'm struck by, you use the knife in the back analogy. That's how you feel that this happened to you. This is what the GOP establishment has done to you, knifed you in the back, and you're hoping you'll be able to pull the knife out of your back and the wound will heal up by November. But that raises kind of a larger question because there are probably a lot of people that are part of the Republican Party, been loyal to the party, worked hard for the party, probably are feeling kind of the same way. And so the question is,
well,
what's this going to? Let me ask the question, then I'll give you the time you need. What's this going to mean for the energy that's going to be available to promote Thad Cochran going into November?
I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that right now, but let me paint a picture for you. I sat under a tent promoting Chris McDaniel on this past Tuesday with an 80-year-old woman waving a sign. She sat there 8 hours waving a sign. She's been giving $10 to $15 a month to the state Republican Party for 30 years. So here you have the establishment come in and roll her over when she's the one that's got some legitimate skin in the game. She's been working all this time. So in answer to your question of what will happen in November, how is that going to affect the race, I don't think anybody knows at this point.
All right, April, listen, I very much appreciate your call and your insight and kind of your perspective on the whole deal. And, I talked to you about the 71-year-old woman, and I got this as anecdotal, but I got this from somebody that had worked inside the McDaniel campaign. And this woman told him the story herself. She was 71 years old. She had taken 125 Chris McDaniel signs out, and the next morning, every one of them had been stolen. And then we discovered that a member of Senator Cochran's staff was arrested for stealing and destroying and defacing these signs. That's not going to be good for grassroots mobilization either. Focal Point AFR Talk back in 2.